Hi, this is our COVID Roundup and CDC update for February 28th, 2025. So, starting off, we look over to our COVID variant tracker by the CDC, and we see that LP8.1 is now making up 42% of all variants by proportion. So, this is the first reporting period where it has surpassed XEC. Last week it was getting pretty close, but it wasn't quite there yet, and now it's jumped pretty significantly from about 32% of all variants by proportion to now 42% of all variants by proportion, a 10 percentage increase. That's pretty significant. You can see that LP8.1 has been sort of growing exponentially. To get a better sense of where it's the most prevalent, we look over to Raj's COVID variant tracker. Raj runs this himself. Very fantastic. So LP8.1 is very predominant in New York. You can tell by the size of these bubbles here. That's a correlation with predominance, how many have been sequenced. And LP8.1.1, which is a subvariant of LP8.1, is also very prevalent in New York. Then we also have some in Illinois and in California. So if we look over to the New York COVID surveillance map for wastewater tracking, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of data this week. 57 wastewater facilities are not reporting, and these are in regions that are predominantly very high. So in this area down here and this area down here, we usually have very high levels. So the vast majority of these are probably going to be moved up to the high regions. So I'd say we're either very similar to last week in reporting or might be increasing upwards very slightly. So it's unclear what impact this new dominant variant has in New York. But globally, we can get a sense of what's happening with LP8.1 by looking over to Mike Honey's tracker. So this is one of the ones that I like. He breaks it down by all these different subvariants of LP8.1. And you can see that LP8.1, this blue, is increasing, and LP8.1.1, this orange, which is a subvariant again of LP8.1, it's the same exact thing. It's just one section of mutation down, one classification down from LP8.1, so it's mutating further away, ever so slightly. And both of these are increasing very steadily. So these are two things that are probably going to make a pretty significant impact, and that's probably what's contributing to this massive increase to 42% from the prior week. Next, we can look over to the CDC's NWSS map, the National Wastewater Surveillance System, and we can look at the current virus levels in wastewater by site. And what we're seeing is that the majority of the Midwest is having very high levels right now. We have some scatterings here in the south, over in the west, and in the northeast that are also at high levels, but everywhere else is pretty moderate in terms of levels. And if we look to the percentage change in the last 15 days, just to get a sense of what the trends are right now, it does look like pretty much all over the US, things are trending upwards, at least compared to 15 days ago. So that gives us a sense that things might be like rebounding a little bit, but from the current wastewater levels, there's pretty much a predominance in the Midwest, and then a little bit in the South is where a lot of the action is right now for COVID. We can then flip over to the Walgreens Respiratory Index tracker, and we see a similar story where essentially in the Northeast, the Midwest, and in the South, we are having sort of increasing levels in COVID test positivity. So that is something that sort of backs up what we were just seeing. And then when we look over to the epidemic trends for COVID-19, we see something weird. So it says that the COVID-19 epidemic trend is likely growing, with an 89.3% likely growing. But you see likely growing is this purple color, but everywhere else is either not changing or green, which means that it should likely be decreasing. So either this data is wrong or this data is wrong. I'm not sure. But the fact that this is saying it's likely growing, this data right here, this raw data, is projecting it to be growing. I'm thinking that this map is actually incorrect for this week. So that's an interesting thing on the website. So I would say that we should stick to this map for projections this week, saying that we're growing, and then also for this map right here, where it's saying that we're growing sort of in the same regions. So we have 3 data sources that are saying one thing, we have 1 data source that's saying something else. Let's stick to the 3 that are showing the same thing. And finally, we can look over to wastewater scan and the 148 reporting wastewater facilities to wastewater scan within the US. We see that things in general are sort of looking like the 2023 winter wave, where we're having a long, slow, drawn out wave with maybe a little bit of rebound right in here. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing it's trending down, and then we're starting to see a little signal increase. It's very likely that this is due to LP 8.1 or LP 8.1.1. And if we zoom in on this data, we see that a lot of the highest levels are in places like Jackson, Michigan, and then Bloomington, Indiana, Warren, Michigan, Little River, Roswell, Georgia, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. So again, sort of in that Midwest region. So everything's looking like it's supporting what we're seeing. And then we still have this anomaly in the West when we look over to the 28 reporting wastewater facilities to wastewater scan in California. And we see that they've pretty much evaded a winter wave in California. Not overly sure why. This is very unusual. I'm still sort of expecting a late winter wave sometime around this time right now for it to start heading up. But other than that, it's a very unusual winter wave in California. You see that like this is the first time where they've had such a long period of not really having these high peaks, because other places in the US are having these. So why is California not having these? Don't know. Very weird.